Hi everybody, welcome to In the Mix. The world is listening here on Blog Talk Radio. I'm Donna Sam. I'm so happy to be here today. As always, I always have wonderful guests, and especially today because we're doing something very tasty. So welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome to your Sunday evening, unless you're somewhere else in the world. It's Monday. So welcome to the show, and thank you for hanging out with us today. And before we get started, I do want to make sure we give out the phone numbers in case you'd like to call and speak to our guest today. So if you have a question for our guest, the phone number here is 718-766-4573. And if you can't get through on the phone lines, feel free to come into the chat room. There's loads of space there if you have a question, comment, or otherwise. So again, the phone number is 718-766-4573. Or come on into the chat room. We're ready to take your call. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Well, welcome back to the show. Again, thank you so much for being in the mix with me, Donna Sam, here on Blog Talk Radio. And we've got an exciting show, but before we begin, I do want to let people know about a really interesting activity that we have coming up next month, April 28th, and it's the MS Walk. Every step matters, every dollar counts, every person makes a difference. When you give, you support direct services and cutting-edge research for a cure. What you give can change thousands of lives. Register today to participate or volunteer. Visit walktoendms.org or call 1-800-FIGHT-MS. One step at a time. Walk MS changes lives. Together we will achieve a world free of MS, multiple sclerosis. And I've got a team. It's Joanne's Jaywalkers. If you go to walktoendms.com or .org, and click on Teams, you'll find Joanne's Jaywalkers, and you can sign up to participate, either to donate or volunteer. All right, so as promised, we have got a very tasty show today, and I'm so excited to have wine representative Jeff Furst with us today. Jeff, thank you so much for being in the mix. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So we're talking about wines, and I'm really a wine virgin, I guess I'll say. And I've tasted some wines, and I really just don't know how to appreciate this, so I'm hoping that you can share that with me.
Well, I'll try.
Okay, so tell us about your experience with wine, Jeff, and you know how it began that you developed a kinship or a love for all things wine.
Well, it started actually when I was just about 18. I started working in a liquor store, but more of a wine shop in the San Fernando Valley. And from there I moved on to some other wine shops and really started to get a wine education that way. And then I really liked the business, and I started to work at wineries, and I've worked for several different distributors who are that's on the wholesale level. So that would be the companies that sell directly to the restaurants and the wine shops, liquor stores type of places.
Okay.
So I've worked at several of those, and currently that is what I'm doing. I'm working for 2 different distributors where I represent their brands, bring their wines out and show them, as well as I've just started a little project where I'm also doing barrel sales, which is wine barrel sales directly to the wineries themselves.
Barrel sales?
Yeah.
Are they empty?
They are empty, yes.
Ah, okay, interesting. All right, so hopefully we can get into that after we talk a little bit about wine. I've never heard that before, so that's something different.
A little bit, yeah.
Okay.
Something new.
Okay, awesome. So, let's talk about, so like I said, I'm new to wines. I'm not really sure what I should be drinking them with or how I should drink them. You know, is there a certain glass? So what would you recommend we start at?
Well, first off, just one thing, when you said what you should be drinking them with and what type of wines you should be choosing, I think the best thing, one of the most important things I think is that you need to pick a good wine that pairs well with food. And that doesn't necessarily mean an expensive wine.
Okay.
It doesn't necessarily mean a certain varietal of wine, because everybody's palate or taste is a little bit different. So you're going to find certain things that you enjoy that somebody else may not, but you want to find things that complement the food or that the food complements the wine.
Okay, and I've never really thought about that. And, you know, maybe that's the case when I have had wine, that whatever I was eating it with, it didn't complement. So that's good to know. So where should we start? Let's where should we start?
Well, I brought a couple bottles,
Okay,
so why
awesome.
don't we start talking about some of the bottles I brought, and we'll do a little tasting and talk about what the flavors are, what you're tasting, what type of wines are, or varietals. The varietal refers to the type of grape that is inside the wine. So I brought 3 wines today. I bought a Mercer Yakima Valley Riesling, which is from Washington State.
Okay.
I brought a Romarinus, which is a French Viognier. It's a very interesting wine. Viognier is the grape variety.
Okay.
And then I brought a Argentinian Malbec,
Oh my gosh.
which is a red wine.
Okay.
So now I think we're going to start with the Riesling, because you said you're kind of a novice in wine.
Right.
And Riesling is, for those that are novices, I think Riesling is an excellent grape or an excellent type of wine to start with. It's usually low in alcohol. It can range from very dry to a very sweet wine. So you can usually find in a Riesling, you can find something that's going to fit everybody's palate, something that everybody will enjoy.
Okay.
Not necessarily the same exact Riesling, but different Rieslings can fit different flavor profiles.
Now, Jeff, where can I find these wines?
Well, the Yakima Valley, the Mercer, the first one that we're going to taste, actually the best place to find around would be Total Wines.
Total Wine.
Total
Okay,
Wine
I've
and
seen that
Spirits.
store.
Yeah, Total. They're a big wine and spirits store. Primarily, they have more wines than almost anybody else, and they have locations, about 3 or 4 different locations throughout Los Angeles area, and then also all over the country.
Yeah, I know there's a new one in South Bay, I think.
Right.
Okay.
So the other two are a little Total Wines. The other two are a little bit more obscure in where you're going to find them. I can give you a couple places in the valley that they might be available in San Fernando Valley. But I think what's more important than finding these exact wines is talking about the varietal and the grape, because there's several. These wines are very traditional of the type of grape that we're going to be tasting. So when you go out and look for a Viognier, that's what you can look for a Viognier. It doesn't necessarily have to be this exact Viognier.
Okay.
And etc.
All right.
So let's grab a couple of glasses here.
And speaking of glasses also, Jeff, I know that plays a big part in wine tasting.
It can,
So,
yes.
did I do okay with these?
You did okay with these.
Okay.
These are a little bit more what I would call a tulip shape. So I usually, an all-purpose wine glass is the best type of glass to find. That'll work well for reds and whites, Chardonnays, Cabs, whatever you have.
Does it have a little skinnier stem?
It's a skinnier stem, yeah.
Okay.
I usually like something with a little skinnier stem and a little thinner type of glass. But this will, whatever you have. I've drank wines out of jars, so whatever. There are certain wines even that will work well in like a highball glass. And actually, this red, for example, I've had this. Just when we haven't had a wine glass, we put it into just a regular old highball type of glass, and it worked just fine.
Well, it's funny you're saying that. It can be a little intimidating. When I went to look for the glasses, I went to 2 different stores, and I saw this gigantic display, and they had like 20 glasses, and they were saying what it works with, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it's very interesting when you really get into it. The way the glass is designed can definitely affect the taste of the wine, and that has to do with how the air is mixing with the wine. That's another important thing we're going to talk about, is how to open the wines and what you should do with the wines once they're opened, and how to get them maybe to bring out a little better flavor profile out of the wines.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, let's get started.
All right. So like I said, I picked a Mercer Riesling out of Yakima Valley. And this is a medium dry to dry Riesling. So with a Riesling grape, you're going to find, no matter what the sweetness is, you're going to find a very floral nose, kind of flowery, sweet flavored nose. Okay, Rieslings tend to be a little lower in alcohol. I believe this one's around 7 to 8%, which is actually pretty low for wine.
Okay.
Okay, most wine is about 12.5%, and can go up to about 15.5% or so in alcohol volume.
Now, Jeff, is this considered a white wine?
It definitely is a white wine.
Okay.
We're going to be tasting 2 whites and 1 red today.
Okay, all right, sounds good.
Okay. This does not have a cork. This has a twist off, okay, which used to be, 5 years ago, twist off was a definite no-no.
So I'm not in this Fred Sanford class, am I? Because
no, you're not. We don't call them twist off anymore. What we call them Stelvin. A Stelvin cap.
Stelvin,
And
okay.
that's just a nicer way of saying twist off, because it maybe does carry a little negative connotation. But a Stelvin is the maker. That's who designed this type. packaging this type of twist off.
Okay.
And what they've done is they've done more than just like you would go to the store and find any product on the shelf that would have a twist off cap. It's not that. They've added, there's a little buffer underneath and a few other things that they've added for the wine purpose that are not on just standard twist off. I would not in any manner be scared off by the fact that a wine has that there's twist off cap in there at all.
Okay.
All right. Lots of wines, primarily whites, whites and reds that do not need aging can easily be in a twist off. We'll have a bottle of twist off.
And this bottle is cold, so it's chilled, right?
It is chilled.
Okay.
And it was a little too chilled when we first got here, but I've taken it's been sitting out for about 20 minutes, and now it's starting to get up to the right temperature.
Okay.
All right. So. Are you picking up the pouring on that?
I am. I'm looking to see if you twist it, because that way there's no spillage, and you did. So. All right.
All right. So we poured it in. It's a lighter color to it, a very light golden, I would say, to it. You know, what I'll do lots of times when I'm looking at the color of a wine is I'll take a piece of white paper, or if we're using a white tablecloth, you could look through it and you look at the edges of the wine. In the white, you really start to see the color more towards the edges than you do. You can see a difference. It's deeper towards the middle than it is towards the edges.
It's kind of graduated, right?
It is very good. It is graduated. Now this tends to be a little more important in the red wines because it will tell you, it can give you a hint to how old the wine is by the level. The graduation, it'll be a little brown. In a red wine, it won't be as ruby around the edges. For an older wine, it'll start to show a little bit of brownness around the edges. Okay, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just showing that it has some age.
Okay.
Okay, so with wines, you see people swirl them, okay, and there is actually a reason for that. What that's doing is it's bringing the air it's mixing the air into the wine, okay? And when the oxygen starts to mix with the wine, it starts to break it down, starts to open it up a little bit more. You'll really notice a difference, especially with red wines, from when you first open it to 20 minutes later and 30 or 40 minutes later. You'll really start to see a difference in the flavor.
Okay.
So, all right, so we're gonna take a little sniff. And why don't you want to give me anything you smell in there?
No.
Okay, let me give you a few wine. Well, I pick up a little bit of apple.
Okay.
A little bit of apple in there, a little crisp apple. Sort of comes to mind. A little bit of peach, maybe, that sort of thing. It's just basically a lot of fruit. The reason you end up with a lot of different fruit flavors.
Okay.
And you can put different labels on them, you know. And all of that it's really, some people really get into that, other people don't. They just want to sit and enjoy a nice glass, and that's, you know, more than